And
hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the book club. I'm Shelley Carney.
are you trying intentionally to clip this? And I'm Toby. I'm going to stick with this a couple of seconds, and we will talk about Forrest Fenn, the Forrest Fenn book, first memoir, Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 17, and this is Part 4. Wow, that just went on, didn't it?
Okay, and we're back. And we do hope that you will take a moment to like this video with a thumbs up, boop, and share it with your social media contacts, as well as subscribing and clicking on the bell to receive notifications whenever we go live or put out a new video. If you're having trouble subscribing, let us know and we'll walk you through the process. Let's see. Subscribers also get to win prizes, so do it now.
Oh, speaking of...
Anything else?
No, I think I'm advancing now. I'm trying to
Moving
get
on.
my technology.
And here we are with housekeeping. We want to send out a big shout out and thank you to our moderators, Jimmy Fast, Joel Lewicki, Jason Eunice, Brian Eagle, and Eric Schmidt. These gentlemen are in our chat room to keep us safe and keep the chat moving along smoothly. And a special warning for all of you today, Toby has taken out the slow mode completely. So everything you say will be up there for our moderators to moderate today.
So, and I was going to let the moderators know that I disabled slow mode, so it's going to be screaming wise. So you're going to have to be especially vigilant today. I guess I don't know what's going to happen.
Let's see how it
actually
goes. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So happy chat to you all. Giveaway. Did you already get to giveaway?
Well, the presentation today is on, as we said, Chapter 17 of The Thrill of the Chase, My War for Me, the fourth part, which I entitled myself Rebirth, if you see the poster that I put out today. And after that presentation, we'll be doing open Q&A. We'd like to start off with talking about anything related to the book, especially anything that's come before or during this chapter. And then anything else you want to talk about. And Toby has a giveaway.
We do have a giveaway. So today's giveaway is a Aunt Lucy's cookbook. Not signed by Aunt Lucy, but signed by me because I shot these photographs. And I have a good question for you at the end of today's show to get it. And we're actually, so Jimmy Fast, after about 20 tries, finally got the response to the question from last night, but broke all the rules in the process. So we'll have to give that away. Which one was it? San Isidro last week. But Jimmy Fast, I give you credit for your continual trying. So
perseverance.
Perseverance, yeah.
One of the signs of a hero.
That's what else? I was going to say something else besides. Okay, so the chat is full speed.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look at my. Okay, so today we are drinking a Kendall Jackson Vintner's Preserve or Vintner's Reserve. Why am I not able to read this? They're a California one. Pinot Gris, 2016 Pinot Gris. And it has a beautiful, you probably can't see it in the lighting, but it has kind of a golden color to it. Very, very nice. So I'm always hesitant with Pinots because there's only certain Pinots my friend here likes. So I actually check with her and see if she wants to explore this. So we'll know real quick here whether she likes it or not.
2800.
2800.
Cheers to all of you. Not bad.
I like it too. That's good. I do like it a lot.
Oh, I like it too.
Okay, so I do want to say thank you to all our subscribers, but especially our most recent subscribers. You helped us to break 2,800. which is a really good number. We never imagined that we were going to get that high in numbers of subscribers. Again, we're not Casey Neistat or PewDiePie, but hey, we think it's a pretty good number. So thank you for trusting us with your subscriptions. We're glad that you've done that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go back to full screen. Hang on.
Full screen time.
And you need to time it with our...
Well, I messed up. I was busy looking for which button to push. So I didn't go, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we could have done that. I'm sorry.
What? Oh, that picture?
Yeah, let's go back and you can talk. You want to work
Do you
with
want to talk about the pictures?
No.
Okay.
Do you want to introduce the chapter with that? Or do you just... We're in full frame right now.
Oh.
I'm going to go back and you can introduce the chapter. How's that?
You're the director. You're supposed to decide.
Pow. Introduce the chapter.
Pow. Pow. Boom. Also. Today we're talking about the Forrest Fenn Memoirs Book Club, Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 17, My War for Me, Part 4 of 7, pages 87 through 90. And again, I have given it a little subtitle myself of Rebirth. So we'll go over why I call it that during today's analysis.
No, very nicely done. Okay.
Yes.
So now I'm going to transition back to full screen. Oh, good. That was pretty good.
Okay. Are you ready?
I am. Chapter 17, Delta, My War for Me, Part 4, pages 87 through 90 of that chapter. And I guess I should mention for the folks that are just catching up with us on all this, that we're handling My War for Me because it's 20% of the book. It's 33 pages, and we decided we wouldn't cover that in one episode. So we're covering it in 7 episodes. This is the 4th of the 7 of those 7 episodes. Page 87, paragraph 2. Initially, I felt myself going into shock. I was clammy, hot, nervous. Then I remembered what they taught us at Snake School in the Philippines, at survival school for Air Force pilots. 100% of those shot down will go into shock, and it can kill you. Lie down, elevate your feet to get blood to your head, think tranquil thoughts. So I thought about being with my father on the Lampasas River in Texas, with a bobber in the water catching 5-inch bluegills. In 30 minutes, I had recovered and felt strong and confident. And then I remembered the clearing and the beautiful waterfall. It was a stupid thought, but strangely tranquilizing. I felt like I should be going home, and I laughed at myself for being so human. Oops, excuse me.
So, could this provide a hint about how to interpret the poem? Is his happy place on the Lampasas River an homage to his special place where he hid the treasure? Does the waterfall that brings him peace in this situation point to a place that is almost home, meaning, in this case, the location of the treasure where he planned to die?
So a couple of things. I do need to address one. I just remembered what I had forgotten earlier. So guys, I have a feeling this chat is going to go by really, really fast. That's how we experienced it when we first started doing chat on our live streams. So please make sure that if you ask us a question, or if you want to ask us a question, you do the whole @ a Gypsy's Kiss. Otherwise, we're going to miss it. And go through it. Or, of course, you can always use a super chat. Oh, how come I didn't pitch super chat?
Because we haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay, that's true. So I do want to say, I do want to mention that when I returned from Vietnam, my first assignment stateside was at Fort Hood, Texas, and I ended up living off the base and in a town called Florence, Texas, because I wanted to return to school at the not return to school, but restart my education at the University of Texas in Austin, UTA. Welcome, Morns. And so I decided to live in a town that was south of Killeen, which is where Fort Hood is, and north of Austin. It's literally right in the middle, Florence, but not far from us, and because it runs through Central Texas, that area is known as Central Texas. It includes Forrest's hometown of Temple and Killeen, Waco, a couple of other places like that. And the Lampasas River went through that. And I wasn't particularly a warm water fisherman because of the Lampasas River, you know, blue gills and stuff like that. But the property that we were living on was a duplex. We lived on the property with a friend of mine whose name was Mike Brockmeyer. Mike was one of my friends in Vietnam, and I ended up being his best man at his wedding back in Pennsylvania. I think I've told you about it. Anyway, the rancher that owned the properties that they were these new duplexes, the properties that we were living on, we used to help on weekends. We used to go out to the ranch and bale hay and toss it out to the cows and just do ranchy things for him. Just gave me a chance to ride horses and be out on the ranch, and a good excuse for wearing cowboy boots. But one of the things that he did is one time, because he had this big property, he'd invite me to go quail hunting, bird hunting on his property and do that. But one time he invited me to go fish on the Lampasas River. And I told him that I had fly fishing equipment, but that I didn't have what would normally be used to fish for warm water fish. And he said, well, all you need is a rig with a bobber and some chicken blood. And so I tried to figure what that was all about. Turns out that the way they weren't hunting for, I mean, they weren't fishing for bluegills. They were fishing for catfish, and catfish are bottom feeders. And so what they would do is they would take cornflakes, and they would mix the cornflake. They would crush the cornflakes up, and they would mix them with chicken blood, and then they would put the hook in the middle of that ball of
goo.
Flavored goodness, I don't know, for a fish, and they would let it dry out, and that's what they used to fish for catfish. And I actually did end up catching. There's no limit on catfish in the Lampasas at the time. There might be now. I did end up catching several catfish, which honestly I tried every possible way to cook, including, you know, the frittered catfish. I don't know what they call it. Just could never get it to taste as good as a trout. But the Lampasas River was that kind of place, and that's Central Texas. If you ever want to meet people who you would say are down home Texan, that Central Texas area is probably where you'd meet them. So good people. Liked my time there. Did you read this already? So I'm back to me. Page 87, paragraph 3. Darkness comes fast in the jungle. That's true. And the night served a chilling menu of exciting events, the memories of which have both entertained and humbled me over the years. I have a strong recollection of sitting on a damp, mossy log, wondering what to do next.
This scene lives on in Fenn's memory for the rest of his life. Did he remember these moments while he sat near rotting logs in a green forest as he took a break while hiding the treasure? Most places he could have hidden the treasure would certainly be safer than he was in this situation.
So Vietnam has 4 seasons, 2 wet and 2 dry, and they're just the opposite. So they don't have the same. They do have the 4 seasons: 3 months wet, 3 months dry, 3 months wet, 3 months dry. And December was the monsoon, so everything would have been wet during the 3 months that it's the wet season. The monsoon season, everything stays wet. During the dry season, it all dries out. Now it never doesn't get. It's always green, whether it's dry or wet for the most part. But what happens is the roads are either muddy or dusty. And the roads in Vietnam during the dry season, if the dirt roads carried enough traffic, eventually the dust would turn into kind of a powder. And as trucks drove through it, it would literally splash because it was so fine. Yeah, that's a good word. But if you were in the jungle during the wet season, everything was wet. There was nothing dry. There were small rivulets. That's when you were most likely actually to see a waterfall, because that's when these streams would form up enough water to toss water over the side of a cliff face or something like that. Now you got to remember where we were at down in the delta, down in the southern part of Vietnam. I operated out of a small town, a fire base near a small town called Kamau, which is not quite the tip of the Delta, but way far down, as far south as we could get. And we dealt with those kinds of seasons. And if you were out in the field during the rainy season, your prime concern was staying dry. And honestly, there was very little you could do to stay dry. The most reasonable solution you could have with you is, rather than trying to set up a tent, which you just couldn't do, was you would throw your poncho over yourself and you'd get into kind of a sitting position, and you would fall asleep in that sitting position if you could get any sleep at all. So this probably wasn't a comfortable night for him, but it's survivable. You know, it is definitely survivable. Page 88, paragraph 2. Then I experienced what was perhaps the most terrifying event of my life. The giant trees bent over and limbs broke. A shockwave of wind and noise blasted me to my core. The high bluffs behind me magnified the sound, and I thought my lungs might collapse. The roar was so traumatic. I felt that if it happened again, I might not survive. I had experienced the effects of Operation Arclight. The blast of noise continued for what seemed like forever. 3 or 4 minutes after it stopped, I recovered some of my senses.
So I asked Toby at this point to talk about his experience being near an Arclight strike, and all of the sounds and sensations and smells and sights that he saw, and how he felt in his body, how damaging that Arclight can be to people. So
I operated in Pho Quoc, which was literally the southern part of Vietnam, south of the Mekong River, in what is referred to as the Delta. The Delta is actually towards the east into the South China Sea, but the area is kind of shaped. It's actually shaped more like the continent of Africa. It's just that lower part of it. Over to the western side were a series of mountains. Now you got to remember the Delta is relatively flat, and over to the west of the Delta, just before you went into Laos, was a range of mountains called the Seven Sisters. They were named after the mythical Seven Sisters that you find in the Pleiades. The Pleiades, the Vietnamese also call the Pleiades that star cluster, the Seven Sisters, although there are more stars than that there, but they call them the Seven Sisters. And they named this range of mountains after them. And that range of mountains was populated by three Vietnamese communist divisions, 95 Mike, 95 Delta, and 101 Mike. And they were tough because they were headed by NVA cadre. That means they're officers. Where NVA, the VC, were regulars, VC, Vietnamese communists that had come from the south, but the NVA had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And they ran these three divisions. So they were very tough, and you had to know where they were. And that was our job. Our job was to use, quote, radio research, unquote, signal intelligence to determine where they were doing, where they were and what they were doing. And at one of our DARS sites in which we were providing security, the DARS guys rushed out, and they told me that the three divisions were on the move, and that's a very dangerous place to be, that they recognized that they were on the move. So we called in to headquarters, our headquarters in Kento, Bintui, Kento. And we let them know that they were on the move, and they didn't seem to be impressed, honestly. There was a point at which I was yelling into the radio, trying to impress upon the radio man on the other end at communications headquarters how big a deal this was when you had three divisions on the move. That could be, depending on the size of each division, up to 4,500 combatants, and they were on the move, and we knew precisely where they were. They were east of the Seven Sisters, and that would eventually lead them to the biggest city of the Delta, which is Canto. And so we kept asking what could be done, and there were no options. And so I requested through my officer. I was an enlisted man, so I can't request an Arclight myself, but I requested through my chain of command an Arclight, and it went up the chain of command and came back down, and it said no. And at that point, we started taking fire from their forward forces, the forces, the scouting forces. And I kept requesting an Arclight, and they kept saying that all the aircraft were committed to other locations. And this was the point that they were flying the B-52D. And the B-52D, if it was, so they had what were referred to as combined bomb loads, which included 500-pound bombs and 750-pound bombs. But if it was just a regular 500-pound bomb load, they carried 108 500-pound bombs. And they were flown out of Guam or Udorn in 27 aircraft. 27 aircraft at a time. That's 3 squadrons, 9 aircraft squadrons, and each squadron had 3 cells, three aircraft cells. And so a cell could be tasked someplace, and I finally got a cell. I finally got, through this process of communications, a cell to come our direction. I gave them coordinates, but by the time I gave them coordinates, they had moved so far forward. They were within a couple of kilometers of us. And that was a very dangerous place to be. At that point, we were effectively calling an Arclight in on ourselves. But we didn't know, we knew that as a small unit in the area, we knew we weren't going to be able to stop them. And the 9th Infantry by that time had started the process of withdrawal. And so there were no big American units to stop them. There were only NVA units and none of them in the area. So we finally convinced them of the importance of the Arclight. They sent a cell. It's a 3-aircraft cell. Like I said, each of these aircrafts, the B-52Ds, carried 108 500-pound bombs, so 324 bombs total. And you can hear them. You can't see them, but you can't hear them until they've actually flown over and dropped their bombs. And then, literally, it's like you walked into hell. I can't describe it any other way. The sound, when you're that close to it, the sound is all-encompassing. The concussions that come from the concurrent dropping of 324 500-pound bombs over a small area at one time, the concussions would make you feel like your insides were being scrambled. You felt like you were losing your heart, and your heart and your lungs were going to explode. The sound is overwhelming. Even if you cover your ears with your hands, the sound comes through. The concussion, and even at the distance, 2 to 3 kilometers, the concussion literally goes through your body, and then it bounces off everything and it comes back at you. We were very fortunate not to be in the midst of it, because if we had been in the midst of it, you don't survive. Nothing survives. After an Arclight, there is nothing. There are no trees standing. There's no animal life. There's no human life. It erases everything. And you can tell when you've come to a location, and then it all dies. And so you can, as you come to an Arclight, an area that had been bombed by an Arclight, you can tell, because after a couple of months, it's all dried out, and it's a big yellow blotch on that area of the map. And that was before we had satellite imagery. We had high-level air reconnaissance imagery, but we didn't have satellite. Afterwards, because of the concussion, you're bleeding from your nose and your ears, sometimes your eyes as well. If you were close enough, you'll receive a shrapnel wound, or you'll be evaporated. I don't know how else to describe it. You will cease to exist. You don't survive an Arclight, and worse, you don't survive an Arclight as a human being. You're simply dust and ashes, and mixed in with all the other dust and ashes. It's not a good place to be, and if you didn't have religion before an Arclight, you have religion afterwards if you survived it. And you probably learned, if you hadn't prayed before that, you probably learned to pray during an Arclight. And I can imagine, and the other thing that comes to your mind is they don't know you're there. They've been told to drop bombs on a coordinates, and 108 times 3, 324 bombs are going to cover an immense area. And like he said, within a few minutes it's all over, and you actually check parts of your body to still see if your insides are still in place. You take deep breaths to determine whether or not your lungs are still working. You put your finger on your pulse to feel and see if your heart is still pounding, because your sense is that it's just been blown to mush inside of you. That's what it feels like.
Let's talk a little about the after effects, the smells, the coughing of blood, and how long that lasts. Did you go to the hospital? Things like that?
So I did, but for different reasons, right? But you again, it's so abusive on your body. It's like being dropped from a 10-story building, but you survive. The damage that it does to when you're that close, and because I was with an Arvin unit, I was considered a big, bulky American, right? I was in shape, and I wasn't that big, but my little small Arvin Ranger soldiers who were 120 pounds soaking wet, it literally blew them around. Like it was like the wind was blowing, and the wind was moving them around. And they, because their bodies didn't have as much, I don't know, density or whatever, it seemed like they took it worse, and they were coughing up blood. And that, again, you're feeling like I've done some kind of damage inside. You know, there's something wrong with me inside. The headache, you get a headache, you get a pressure headache from it, and because of the concussive nature of them, and the headache doesn't go away for 3 days. And if you go to the hospital and you explain all these symptoms that you're experiencing, they'll know. And it's not necessarily an Arclight. They'll know that you were within proximity of some sort of explosion, right? It doesn't have to be an Arclight, but the same effects. Explosions, you know, TV and movies don't do the explosive nature of any kind of high explosive weapon justice. The amount of damage that it does, starting with the ring of concussion, and then flame, and then the shrapnel that comes out. I mean, and this is all happening in a split second, basically. But your body has to absorb, if you're going to survive, and a lot of people don't. They're going to have to absorb those three things: first the concussion, then the fire and flame, and then the shrapnel, and then the falling of dust. If you're within a particular perimeter of that explosion, it evaporates the human body. There is no human body afterwards. It just breaks it down into individual atoms or whatever. But afterwards, you know, it's days worth of checking your body. Actually, you're kind of like, I had to do something damaging happen there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be bleeding and coughing up blood and feeling like your insides are scrambled up. So, but, you know, after a week or two, you're back out in the field, you know, and doing your job, and like he did. You know, he was recovered by the rescue team, and he was probably flying within a couple of days after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
I just wanted to mention that the Arclight Toby just talked about, he received the Silver Star. He doesn't like to talk about it, so I did. And of course, you had a purple. Did you get the Purple Heart for that one too? Yeah, Purple Heart as well.
Okay.
All right, that's the
Page
little one there.
Page 89, paragraph 1. At first light, I was making notes about what had happened.
I just wanted to make mention of that because Fenn kept the notes he'd written. He kept them, and then he copied them into the book at this point, because apparently he was a writer, even if he didn't know it.
Well, the other thing too is there's I don't know what they call it in the Air Force, but there's an after action report.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't make notes, you're going to, and all of this is important from an intelligence gathering perspective. So if you don't make notes, you're going to forget things. We all carry notebooks and pencils or pencils mostly. And you made notes after everything so that when you reported it in your after action report, you could do it credibly, and the importance of all of that was to make it usable in terms of accuracy for intelligence purposes. So, page 90, paragraph 4. An hour later, we landed at that's a Thai name, Nakhon Phanom, Thailand, where we were greeted by a couple of generals and a camera crew. I was the 1,500th airman to be rescued by the Air Rescue Service in Southeast Asia. It was a noteworthy milestone for them and a humbling honor for me.
So being greeted by cameras and treated like a hero along with the rescue team must have given Fenn a positive feeling for fame and recognition that would encourage him to seek that kind of recognition in the future. This scene is the most dramatic in this chapter, and perhaps the entire book. It is a threshold moment and a metaphorical rebirth, being roughly extracted through the trees by a cable to land in a helicopter and having his arrival celebrated. Questions to ponder.
The return of the hero.
The return of the hero.
Before I read these questions to ponder, you'll hear Shelley and I talk about the hero's journey, and so when you look at the hero's journey, there's this cycle that you go through, the birth and return, but one of the things about the hero's journey is that and I'll tell you, for example, when you're writing a screenplay, there are 10 sections in that screenplay, each representing the progress along the hero's journey. And you can divide it into acts, and then you can divide it into scenes, and then you can divide it into sub-scenes. But the thing that you learn as you're developing a screenplay in that way is that each act then becomes another hero's journey, and that each scene becomes another hero's journey. So you're going through the cycle in as short as 3 minutes, which can make up a scene in a movie. You know, for those of you who haven't written screenplays, they divide the screenplay into 25, 50, and 25. 25% of the movie is the beginning, 50% is the middle, and then 25% is the end. And the 50% of the middle is actually divided in half. So it's Act 1, Act 2, Part 1, Act 2, Part 2, and Act 3. And then each of those is divided into a series of scenes. And a scene can run from 90 to, well, some scenes are as little as 10 seconds, but an average scene is from 90 seconds to around 3 minutes. And each one of those becomes a mini hero's journey. And if you know what you're looking for, you can see each one of them. I had an email recently from a woman who had asked about the hero's journey and wondered very specifically about the call and the refusal to the call, which is early on in the process. It's actually the acceptance of the call is end of Act 1. And I guess she was dealing with a teenager and experiencing some of this, and she wondered how she needed to respond, and I explained it to her. I forgot the point that I was going to make about that hero's journey.
Hero's journey, cycle.
She wrote me, and hero's journey, and was experiencing it with her teenager, and wanted a response to it, and I was going to make a point, but I can't remember what the point was. Anyway, it'll come to me later. So, I was going to say, so I wrote her and I gave her the advice that I thought she was asking for. And then she said, how could I show it to them? And I said, there's really the two basic choices are read the Odyssey, which is a difficult read. But you have to have a reason to read it. But if you want to see it, just go watch the first Star Wars movie, because the first Star Wars movie, Luke Skywalker is the hero, and he travels literally minute by minute, Act 1, Act 2, Part 1, Act 2, Part 2, and Act 3. Luke Skywalker is the hero of that story, and you can literally follow the hero's journey by watching that movie. So that's the point that I wanted to make.
Uh-huh.
Questions to ponder. because this is the most dramatic moment in the book. We are expected to pay close attention. Does this indicate that it points the way towards solving the poem and finding the treasure? Did Fenn devise a way to repeat this rebirth moment at the planned time of his death, while he hid the treasure before completing his mission of throwing his body on the chest, thus completing the circle? So one of the things I have concluded without any evidence, because I've never had the conversation, is that somehow or the other Fenn understood the story of the hero's journey. You probably can't be an anthropologist, an amateur anthropologist like Fenn was, or an amateur archaeologist and not know of Joseph Campbell's Hero of a Thousand Faces, because that's the fundamentals of storytelling. What Campbell proves in his book is that every culture, from the beginning of cultures that could tell stories, used this same mythological character, the hero, to tell their stories. Fenn, as an amateur anthropologist, maybe not as much as an archaeologist, but an amateur anthropologist, had to know that. That's a conclusion. That's an assumption. I'm sorry. I believe that he had to know that. And I believe that he incorporated that into his first memoir because it reads like the hero's journey. But this particular chapter was easily recognizable for him. And this particular section, it was fortunate that we decided to divide this up the way that we did, because I think this is a representation, this particular section 4 is a representation of the hero's journey in 4 pages. While my Vietnam for me is the hero's journey in 32 pages, and that the thrill of the chase is the hero's journey in 143 pages. So if you look at it like that, it not only makes him a better writer, it makes him a better storyteller. And if you ever decide to write your memoir, or if you decide to write a novel, or if you decide to tell your stories, and you do it using this planiform, this template of the hero's journey, it makes it very easy to read and kind of comprehend. And even from Shelley's perspective, it makes it, I imagine, easier to analyze, because you can almost imagine what he is not thinking, because he writes down what he's thinking. What he doesn't write down is what he's feeling, but he tells you that. He tells you, without writing it down, what he's feeling. And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, Forrest Gump. We're ready to go to the chat?
Yeah, I think we are. Okay. Let me see. Let me make sure I still got a signal. Are we actually got a...
Actually, he meant my war for me, not my Vietnam for me, but...
Yeah, he could have very well.
No, you said that.
Oh, I did.
You said my Vietnam for me.
Oh.
It's like, yeah.
Oh. Wrong story, sorry.
Well, you were telling your side of the story today, so that's okay.
Okay. So let me just check and make sure we have a good signal, and we do. And so we're going to switch over to. We need to handle this first. So.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, and.
There we go.
So, a couple of things. Number one, if you want to make sure that under this new scheme of turning chat loose, basically, you want to get noticed, make sure you take advantage of the fact that there's a $sign at the bottom of the chat window for super chat, and the effect is that if you want to make sure we notice your question, that's a good way to do it, because it highlights your question. That does not mean we won't try to answer all the questions in the room. We usually try to do that. It's not, but super chat helps us with our project, so thank you for that.
And look, Toby got a new shirt.
I was going to say I bought a new shirt, but that's a lie. I literally have a closet full of shirts that I don't wear. So I decided, hey, it's been sitting there for a while.
It's summer.
It's summer.
Hey,
It's cotton.
There's an eclipse today, a new moon eclipse going on.
It's cotton,
so it's very Woo woo.
Very well. And the second thing that I wanted to point out is with this new scheme of no holds barred on the chat, things are going to fly by and there's going to be a lot of chat. So if you have a question for us, make sure you precede it with the @ and full a Gypsy's Kiss so that we can see it. Otherwise, they're just going to.
Highlights it in orange. For
there's
us, so
there's one that
that
Journeyman says, right?
Yeah.
Journeyman used it already. So
That's right.
okay, so let's go over to full screen, and I need to make a change here. That isn't full screen, and then we're going to go back to full screen and give you. I present to you chat.
Oh boy.
Okay.
And here we are in the chat room. Hello, everybody. Good to see you. Hi, Eric Schmidt, Jimmy Fast, Shane McLaughlin. Cindy Guess is here. Rick Blank from Cincinnati. Tammy Mattis, Brian Eagle, Shane McLaughlin. And Lori James is here.
Thundering and Salida.
Thundering.
Yeah.
Good.
We could use
Hopefully get lots of rain.
We can use the rain.
And then send it down to us. Journeyman's here from Missouri. Jeremy Milstead.
Jimmy Fast, the man with the golden voice. Brian Eagle. Hi, this is Brian.
Shane
Brian,
McLaughlin is bringing us Boom.
Oh, Boom.
Because I was saying Boom earlier.
Oh, okay.
So he gave us a graphic for that. Steve Rimple, hello. Saffron, good afternoon. P.T. Garner 1. Haven't seen you in a while, P.T.
Yeah, you're back.
And what is Shane asking there at the bottom?
AGK, why did, we got to scroll it down. AGK, why did Forrest Fenn rush to get the book printed? Was writing it up to the very end before printing it? Why the rush? Does not anybody see something wrong with this part of the whole layout?
This particular book? I had heard the second book was fast, but was this one fast too?
No, I don't. Oh, well, I think he was. I think Fenn is the kind of guy which is why he has his own publishing company. He can make a decision about when the book is published, and if he feels like towards the end he'd like to make changes. And I know, as a person that's not a non-writer, and I think Fenn's like me. I think he's a talker rather than a writer. I don't know whether you've ever seen any of my blog posts, but literally I'll write them, post them, and then spend the next 3 days editing them until all the errors are out and until the things I really want to say. So I guess I don't see the same level of intrigue in the publishing of a book by his own publisher that you do, Shane. I think it's just Fenn. Jeep Girl Jody from Colorado. Jody, I saw the $9 million house. Yeah, if I do get it and give it to you, I'm going to expect your old Jeep in return. How's that?
JL is here. He's on his second boots on the ground he's coming up in 2 weeks in Wyoming. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop.
Whoa.
Virgil Kane is here. Jono Jones, hello. We missed you last night, Jono.
Yeah, you would have liked it last night, Jono. We were talking about traveling.
Yeah. How far is too far to travel for the treasure? Bill Cross from Texas is here.
What is Eric asking? AGK, when did you start drinking? Well, let's see. I was 11. And my cousin Tommy and I stole a gallon of wine from the rectory after Mass one time. You know, the white wine that the priests use. Cheap white wine that the priests use.
I don't know if that's what he means.
Oh. All right. Never mind. Oh, you mean when did I start drinking today? Well, when we poured...
As soon as we opened the bottle.
As soon as we opened the bottle, which was about...
just a bit before 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Steve Rempel noticed my new shirt. Thank you, Steve.
Ah. And Bill Cross, David Koloski from Michigan, Fenn Treasure. Oh. Hell yes.
Hell yes.
Oh, hell yes.
Fenn Treasure. Oh, hell yes.
I don't know what that was for, but hook 'em horns.
Oh.
Okay. Bill Kaiser, hello, Toby and Shelley. So it's safe to say your effort will be worth the cold. Not sure. Jono, anyone spot anything useful in Catcher in the Rye?
You know who has, you go visit Susan Heckenliable's YouTube channel, Jono. She has a bunch of stuff on Catcher in the Rye.
Dave Erickson is here. And I'm at the bottom. Sean Martinez is here from Clovis.
Our recent coin winner.
Ah.
So I'll ship those, Sean, I'll ship your coin tomorrow, along with whoever wins to Aunt Lucy's cookbook today. David Dow, that's right. It's like talcum powder during the dry months as the trucks go through it.
Brent from Austin, Texas is here. That's where I think my daughter and son-in-law are going to be moving at the end of the year.
Is that where he's going to go back to school?
Yeah, looks like it.
Oh, good. UT?
Looks like it.
That's a great school, and it's a great town to live in.
Going.
Great town to live in. Learn to scuba dive. There's lots of lakes for scuba diving.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know my daughter won't do it. She barely gets in the pool.
In the pool. A lot of good boating, too.
Jono says, I've been going back over Fenn's comments on what you need, all of them. He's really clear. You only need the thrill of the chase. Obviously a good tool. But no other info. So reflecting on my solve with that in mind.
We think that, Jono, we think that's a smart move. We agree that that's the approach that you should take. But not everybody agrees with that. Well, that's our opinion on the matter. That's the Fenn died in December 2010 rule.
Jimmy Fast wants to know if you think that Forrest ate grubs and other bugs when he got shot down because he had rations in his parachute, after all.
He would have light rations. At the time, we had C rations and not MREs, and a box of C rations was that big and weighed 4 pounds, if not more. So he would have some light rations. The interesting thing about eating grubs is that if you went to survival school, you had to do it then anyway. So you at survival school, one of the things that you are, I don't want to say forced, but one of the things that you're required to do is find and eat things that, as a guy from Temple, Texas, you probably never found and ate before. So it could be very likely
they're
very high. They're not very high in calories. It's like a squirrel. They're not very high in calories, and it's all protein. So it's not going to sustain you. But if you said to yourself, I'm out here, I maybe not get rescued, so I better, I think it's very possible, because Fenn strikes me as the kind of guy that would like to say, and I ate some grubs, I remember in my survival school, my ranger school, at the end of ranger school, the second to the last week of ranger school, they send you out and they drop you in an area that you have to get back to on your own to your base camp in 3 days. And one of the things that I captured and ate was a rattlesnake, timber snake. And I didn't actually need to do it. I could have survived 3 days without eating, just because I had plenty of water. But I decided, the snake was there, he was being cooperative, and I always wanted to be able to say I ate a snake. So he might have just eaten grubs because he wanted to eat grubs.
It was only, I don't know for sure, but according to this particular story, it was only there overnight, right?
Yeah.
So he wouldn't, and having been in shock and not feeling himself, and then running and scared, I don't think he probably felt like eating.
Yeah.
Phil wants to recommend Roberto Valdez as a guest.
Oh,
Do you
I don't
who
know.
that is? He says,
Would be a great guest and interested in pursuing him for an interview of the Southwest. Nuevo Mexicano, noting for your consideration. Thank you, Phil. Do me a favor and send me the information to gypsieskiss@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to have him on as a panel guest. Hey, Joel, are you feeling better? I hope you're feeling better. He had a head cold.
Oh. And John Bobbitt's here.
Yeah, see, Joel came to the same conclusion you did. He was only there one night.
Oh, he's going back out next month.
Yeah.
In New Mexico.
Where, hey, John Bobbitt, if you come near Albuquerque, let us know and we'll get together for some coffee or some lunch or something.
And I am beautiful today.
You are beautiful. You're always beautiful. You're always beautiful. Okay. Okay, you're at Virgil Kane. Oops.
Oops. Hang tough, Toby.
What? That was a reasonable thing to say. Virgil, I saw that. Thank you.
Thank you for your service and protection, says Memphis.
Thank you for your support, sir.
How are you not crazy, Toby?
Because I think, like I said, I've said this in the past, and that is, you have, it's a coming back from any time you're in combat, whether it's was Vietnam or any of the wars that have followed that, including some of the most recent ones which have gone longer than that and had multiple deployments for our service people. You have to make a decision when you get back about how the rest of your life is going to go. And for most soldiers, the decision is to go ahead with your life and not be, you can tell by Fenn, by the time Fenn was out of the military in 1972, he wanted to go on with the rest of his life. And that he put it behind him. And you either have to do that or it keeps haunting to you. I've told you several times about a couple of friends of mine, a very good friend of mine, who has two children, the age of my oldest children, and whose two children are friends with my two children, and still are after the years they met when they were in their, in elementary school. But every time I meet him, it's a conversation about that period we spent in Vietnam. We weren't even in the same branch of service, but he still hangs on to it, and I want to support him as much as I possibly can. But there's nothing I can do. I'm not a professional, and I suggested professional help, etc. But the other thing too is, as many of you know, I get my health care provided by the Veterans Administration. I go to the Veterans Hospital, and as I'm waiting there, I end up in conversations with guys that are wearing their indication that they spent time in Vietnam. And they want to have that conversation. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful, but at the same time, I don't want to have the conversation. It's past. I had to go on to raise, children, and so it's very difficult. You have to be kind-hearted enough to be able to help them through that moment, but wise enough to know that there's not much else you can do except help them through that moment.
Let's see. Oh, Alan Kay says, I will try not to complain about a single thing for the rest of the day after hearing your story. Paul says hello. Phil Kaiser says, dang.
Dang.
Memphis Rains is impressed. Jim White says, yes, I have been near a B-52 drop. It's like being in an unending earthquake. Yeah. Don't even try to stand up.
Yeah, you're best just laying down.
Journeyman says, has anybody compared this writing?
Thank you for your service, Jim.
Yeah. Has anybody compared this writing of My War for Me with the magazine article for the differences? What is missing and what's left out? And if so, where can we find it?
So that question has been asked before, Journeyman. I'm going to raise it up to him, right up to Journeyman right there. So that question has been asked, and I think there's 3 instances of this story. One instance is in the book. One instance is in the tale that he tells, the recorded version, and one instance is this magazine. And there are not a significant number. Most of the differences are editorial, except for one thing, and that is in what we referred to as Section 1 of this chapter. That Section 1 is more of a preface and does not appear in the printed version that you're referring to. So it's shorter. The one that you're referring to is shorter by at least that amount. I haven't done a complete analysis of it. I haven't seen the need, honestly, but I can tell you that there are differences between the one in the book and the one that has been printed prior to that.
Okay. Big Bike Guide Service is here from, I think he said Texas. Texas. Man in Texas with a pickup truck here.
Jim White, debriefing. That's what I was trying to, your after-action report in the debriefing. That's right, Jim.
A Kentucky man, Mike Patterson, is here. Cherry says, the line, your effort will be worth the cold, is not a part of your solve. Why not?
Oh, wow. She's picking up on comments that we made. Because our solution is limited to our interpretation of the 9 clues, which we believe, which in our opinion start at begin at where warm waters halt and end at look quickly down your quest to cease. And that line is not in that range, Cherry. That's why. That does not mean that that's our solution. That's our solution in our 9 clues. That doesn't mean they're correct. We do not have the treasure. We do not know where the treasure is. We have no idea what the blaze looks like. So yeah, you can use it however you want, but that's why it is for us.
Urban Taint is here, and Sean Dodson is here.
Hey, Urban, congratulations on the amount of work that you've been putting into your YouTube channel. You're doing some really good work, and I had a comment on one of our videos from this week about other people, and my response was, we strongly recommend that if you have opinions on these matters, make yourself a YouTube channel, talk to the camera, and express your opinions. We think that's A, healthy for the individual, and B, healthy for the community. Now, you're going to have to learn how to handle the trolls, so make sure you watch my video called Control the Trolls, because you will be trolled, and it can be very debilitating. It can make you feel, the idea is for them to make you feel bad about yourself, but ignore it and then handle them and then go on with what you're doing. A good example is Susan Heckenliable. She was so frustrated after the first couple of videos that she put up that she just kind of shut down, took all her videos down, and then I saw what she had done. I wrote her, I suggested she watch the video, now she puts them up. And whatever you think about the manner, the approach in which she's taking, you have to admit it's fun to watch. And it's cute, and she makes me laugh. And I may never apply any of her principles, her assumptions, and I may not agree with her assumptions, and I may never apply any of her conclusions, but it's fun to watch, and I enjoy watching it. And I give her a thumbs up on every one of her videos, and I can't comment because the trolls then troll me, which mess up her videos. But I strongly recommend that if you have your own opinions on these matters, put your iPhone in front of you, it has one button to either record or to live stream. Use your headset for audio.
Are we doing a little how to make a video guide here?
I want everybody to have a YouTube channel. I think everybody should have a YouTube channel.
Okay. I'm at the bottom.
Oh, you are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
See, Jeff Mann is here, still pondering the poem.
Can I address this thing from Lori? Lori, I think I agree with you. One of the struggles that he had to go through, and I've heard this from other Air Force pilots who, especially fighter pilots, and occasionally a B-52 pilot, because they were flying at an altitude that they were so far removed from what they were doing, and they, during their debriefing, would get after-action reports and bomb analyses several days afterwards, so they had to know what kind of damage they were doing. And so that's one of the things that when the war is that when you're that far removed from the war, that's something that you have to overcome, that they had to overcome. And I'm sure I'm sure part of my war for me is, as I said earlier, Forrest's way of relieving himself of some of this. I don't want to call it guilt. It's not guilt. It's just like an internal pain that you have to get rid of, and telling the story does that. Telling these stories of what you experienced, I think, does that for him. So I agree very much with what you've written there. Big Bite Guide Service.
Sean McLaughlin. Back to the timeline on the book. It just seems a little offbeat that Forrest slammed it altogether so quickly. Something is off with this. This is a man who spent 15 years writing a poem. But he had already written a lot of the
Yeah.
book in scrapbooks and articles, as people have mentioned that this My War for Me was an article in another magazine. Or
Yeah, he started. It was not only in a magazine, but it was taken from the stories that he told to that group that put the recording in the Library of Congress. But a lot of the stories that he wrote were written, during the 1990s, was when he started writing at the recommendation of both Michael McGarrity and when he went out and he tried to get people to write his memoir for him, and as he asked his writers friends, they gave him the best advice that they could, which is do it yourself.
especially if it's a memoir.
Right, because you know the story and you can tell stories. The challenge is having the patience necessary to do it. And Fenn strikes me as a kind of guy that he's not going to type 60 words a minute. But I think what he found in himself, the discovery that he made about himself, was not that he could tell a story. He already knew he could tell a story. The discovery he made in himself was that he could sit down and transcribe that story from whatever thoughts in his brain was onto paper or onto a screen. So I don't see the same intrigue, perhaps, that you do, Shane, in the development of the book. And then, of course, you have to ask the question, what intrigue or not, what's the relationship to how, where, and when he hid the treasure that we're all looking for? So, Memphis from Moab, Utah. You know what? It struck me the other day. I haven't seen enough of Utah. I mean, I was watching TV and they had a commercial on that Utah has, I think, either 5 or 7 national parks, and none of them are foresty. They're not like Yellowstone. They're those, beautiful red rock mountain biking. I need to see more of Utah. I need a trip up there.
A lot of skiing up there too. So Eric actually thought we had hit the bottle early because we kind of started off kind of funny.
Oh, no. We had the first sip that you saw.
We're just having fun.
We're just having
We don't have
fun.
to drink to have fun.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. You're a bit out of it. Yeah.
Deborah Lindsay.
Hi, Deborah.
Do you think that his experiences in Vietnam gave him an insight and empathy for soldiers in other wars, such as the Civil War?
I think so. Let me answer that in 2 ways. The first way is yes. That the answer to that question is yes. But I think that's true of anyone who has spent any time in the military, especially if you spend that time in the military in one of the combat arms. So the 3 combat arms in the Army are infantry, artillery, and armor, and then behind that are the support units. But one of the things when you serve, whether it's in any one of the branches, you accumulate in yourself the history of that branch and of military service, and so you can't help it. If you're serious about your service, and you can't help but empathize with the soldiers that came that served before you, with the people that served before you, and you assimilate all of that. So once you're a GI, the Marines are probably the most definitive about this. Once you're a Marine, once you're a jarhead, you are always a jarhead. Semper Fi, Mac. Once you are a U.S. soldier, you are, no matter how much time you served or where you served, that's always part of you from that point forward. And along with that comes the history of that service. So I'm the kind of person who can tell you the history of the United States Army not because I was a lifer, right? That's what they refer to, a person that spends at least 20 years. Fenn was a lifer. Our friend Jason Dent is going to be a lifer. He's going to spend 20 years in before he retires. I wasn't a lifer, although I went in with the intent. After 5 years, I decided, no, there were other things I wanted to do with my life. But you walk away always having been a soldier, and always having been part of the history associated with that branch of the service, and more on a grander scale, the history of the people who have served. Now, that is not to diminish the value and the importance of the people who didn't serve. It's just something added kind of to your personality and the dimensions by which you by which you measure yourself. I don't go around talking about, my military service. I go around talking about my YouTube channel and my partnership with Shelley, and and when asked, it's kind of neat to be able to talk about it. I think this particular chapter is nice in that respect. And Shelley's been very good about it because, Shelley and I have been friends long enough that she wanted to know. She knew these answers to questions. You can't know me and not figure out that I spent some time in the military. And so she wanted answers to some of those questions. But, being in the military not only was something that affected the rest of my life in a positive way, it is something that will always be a part of me. So the funny part is at some point I had a shadow box with all my ribbons and medals and patches, and after a while it had ended up in a storage room that was near my office, and I had a nephew that was visiting, and he was very much into the military. He was younger, he was in 12 or 13, and he saw it, and I gave it to him. I gave him the shadow box with all my medals and things like that, and it was kind of a neat thing to do for him because he appreciated it, and at that point I could let it go. It was a good moment for him, and was a good moment for me as well.
Shane just says, Forrest Fenn always says making plans is antagonistic to freedom. Yet again, he spent 15 years constructing the poem. He says he doesn't like making plans, but he does plan anyways. It's inevitable.
I think you have to. I think it's one thing. So it's one thing to write down a plan. It's another to set an objective or a goal. And I can empathize with Fenn in that way because I'm not a plan writer. I set a goal and then set a goal, maybe set a long-term objective, and then I head towards that objective. And the only planning that's done is I ask myself regularly, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to that objective? And that's why we don't plan to go to the treasure. We ask, we take a look at things. If it's a plan, it's a short-term plan to go. We have a plan right now to take 4 days at the end of August and go get serious about looking for this treasure where we think it is. So that's the plan. But in the meantime, what happens is I have to ask myself, is what I'm doing right now, not necessarily right now, but in that plan, is what I'm doing right now heading us in that direction? And I think that's the kind of guy that Fenn is. He's setting objectives and then asking himself each time of the day, am I getting closer to that objective? So if he had an objective to publish a book and hide a treasure in 2010, then what he had to ask himself from the time he made that decision is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to meeting that objective?
Fossilman123 said he had a similar first drink with a gallon of wine.
Oh, hey, I'll tell you what, Fossilman, it was even worse because for some reason we decided to drink. We hid in one of my grandmother's barns, and we drank the wine straight from the bottle with a straw. And because we weren't taking in oxygen with it, it got us drunk. We were drunk and hungover for 3 days, and I couldn't smell wine for 10 years after that. So it was not my first wine drinking experience. It was not a good experience. I had to learn all over again as an adult to acquire the taste and understanding of the value of wine. Okay, let's see. My dad seems Forrest time and numb formed his hatred, if that is the correct word for war. Yeah, it's a disgust more than a hatred. It's a like you end up asking yourself how we even as human beings get to that point. The answer is not a hard one, but you wonder. It's a disgust with it. It's a abhorrence for it, especially when you've seen the results. And you ask yourself, how, as human beings, could we possibly? What is so wrong with us and with our relationships with other countries, for example, that we get to the point where we do these things to ourselves? And it's not just. What's even worse, I think, is it's not just. I'm proselytizing here. It's not just the military action. It's what they do to people. What I saw in Iraq and Afghanistan, you have to ask yourself how one human could do that to another human who was not a combatant. It's just as ugly as you can imagine. It's horrendous and ugly, and it kind of puts it always makes you question our humanity. And I think that's what he experiences. Like, how can we claim ourselves? How do we make it this far? And the other thing too is it does for you is how are we going to survive? If this is how we are, how are we ever going to make it past the next 100 years? Or sorry, I have lots of thoughts of that. Okay.
Okay.
Tell me when. I'm going to go to Fossil Man 1, 2, 3. Okay. Cherry is next.
Which one?
Right there.
I read that Forrest forgot to name the poem. Do you know who named the poem The Thrill of the Chase?
To the best of my knowledge, Cherry, the poem has never been named. If somebody's named it The Thrill of the Chase, it certainly was anybody who had the ownership of it. I don't think the poem ever had a name.
Right. And she asked what actually happened when Forrest got shot down. Did he parachute down to the ground twice? And somebody answered that. Jimmy Fast answered that. Forrest crash landed the first time, which he talks about. He limped away from that landing. And then he ejected the second. That's right.
Yeah.
He parachuted down. Let's see. Craig Whittles?
Straight mustard, that's correct. Some people never get over it. Ever.
What do you think are the odds that Forrest Fenn first sighted his special location from above in an aircraft before going boots on the ground? Do you hypothesize that it was a fishing trip that brought him there?
Craig Riddles, have you been reading my mind? I think... Whittles. Oh, I'm sorry. So, Craig, I think it is perfectly plausible that in one of Fenn's flights out of Santa Fe, north, that he saw something on the ground below him that intrigued him, and that he followed it up with a fishing trip. So, that actually is what you're describing there has been incorporated into our solution.
Okay, Shane, I'm working on it.
What was that?
He's trying to teach me to pronounce his name correctly.
It is in McLaughlin?
It's McLaughlin.
Oh.
McLaughlin.
McLaughlin.
Yes.
Okay.
No extra sound effects. No.
Okay. It is in McLaughlin. McLaughlin.
It's not German.
Right. It's Irish. It's
no,
Irish.
I think it's Scottish.
Oh, is it? McLaughlin?
McLaughlin. I think it's Scottish.
Okay. Scrolling up to A Gypsy's Kiss, which we've already addressed. Oh, dang nabbit.
Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop.
Okay. Right there. Paul Wood, hello. Have we said hi to Paul before? Where are you from, Paul?
Craig says, Forrest has said that his best hours have been flying at 500 feet searching for Indian ruins or following a river through a winding canyon.
Yep. I could see that. We could see that.
David Dow says, the Marines can take a beach, but the Army took a continent. Let me guess, you were in the Army? Or your dad was somebody?
Well, it was true. I mean, the Marines were the first service to actually land in Vietnam. They landed at Da Nang in 1968, I think it was. I want to say either
68.
Was it 68?
You guys were there before that, weren't you?
No. We were there as special operation. There were special forces. There were people there, but I think we finally landed
as troops.
And as a invasion force. They landed at Da Nang, and what was really cute is the Vietnamese military had kind of planned for them, and they had this big ceremony. So these Marines are coming off these landing craft, prepared to hit the beach. And they basically had, young Vietnamese women in ao dai, which is their traditional dress, with lei, like Oh, one for you too.
They thought they were in the wrong place. Did we go to Hawaii?
Yeah, excuse me, where are we? Get that new frontier on the Jeep trails. Hey, we have, Virgil. We are. Oh, you mean up in Utah? Yeah.
Oh. Go see the bear guy.
Utah is pretty, but watch out for the Mormons. We like Mormons.
Oh, I thought you said marmots.
No, marmots.
Marmot.
Where's Jason when we need him? Utah is pretty, but watch out for the Mormons. No added sound effects needed. Zion National Park. Yeah, like I said, Memphis, I was just watching that commercial and it mentioned that they had 5 national parks and they all have that Zion National Park look to them. So.
Jim White said he gave his shadow box to a child too.
Yeah, isn't that funny how you go like, I don't need these anymore. Go see the bear guy. Oh, Kentucky. Oh, you mean Tom Smith he's at Brigham Young University. Yeah, that would be fun. Maybe take a camera and a recorder and have an interview with him.
At the very bottom, Adrian George wants to know how we met.
Let's see, hang on. Forrest Fenn said that the best hours have been 500 feet searching. Yeah, Craig, we have incorporated that thinking into our solution. Jimmy Fast. Okay, the Marines can take a beat. Okay, Shane McLaughlin. EGK just jumped out at me, Jarhead. And the kid that waved in the little green olive jar. Hey! The little green olive jar in the face. Jar face head. I can see where you're going with that. I could put that clue
he was in
together.
The Air Force. That's Marines.
Okay, yeah. Jeff Mann, no, I don't think so. I think it might have been an adventure, his first steps into the book, but I think he's talking about a physical place. Otherwise, we have no place. You're not going to hide a treasure in a book. Oh, that's an interesting way to say that, huh?
Yeah, because the dagger was in a book.
Yeah.
And that one that Cal Lazar's told us about.
Yep. Let's see. 23-minute closing plan. Okay, that's not a question. AJK, how did you two meet? I've only been into this for a month now. You want to tell them how we met? Short story.
Because Toby worked for the public access television station.
No, it was before that. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, but we met there, but we didn't really get to know each other there.
Sure. Okay, so I'll tell
because he was doing a project and I was there.
I was doing a project for the Spanish Colonial Art Society, documentary or a TV series, and I made a deal with CNM that I would use their students to produce the series if they provided me the technical assets, the set, the lighting, set, and technology. And Shelley was one of the students in that program. And I was impressed by her work ethic. She was a really hard worker. And then, when was the next time? So that was in 2012?
Yes, January of 2012. And then we met up again that summer because you were teaching, you were doing outreach for the
public
producer
access
program for the local public access station, and that's something that I was interested in becoming involved in. And Toby and I met, and we created a talk show together called New Mexico Media Makers.
She produced it, I directed it, and so that was a 13 episode series that was a lot of fun for us. You can still find those. Where can you find Media Makers?
I have the playlist on my YouTube channel.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. And if you look really hard, you might be able to find it under New Mexico Media Makers in YouTube. So. And
then ever since then, we've just been doing a series of projects. We did, we've done a couple of documentaries. We've done a couple of narrative films. We've done a couple of 48-hour film festivals. We are award-winning screenplay writers.
That's right.
The Athena competition. For the Athena competition, the woman in the story. Mm-hmm. And let me see, what else?
That's enough.
What did we do? We did that film New Mexico. We did film New Mexico together.
We did Adelante.
Adelante, another documentary. So we've done it. We just started doing. She had a great work ethic in terms of her kind of style, operating style. It's opposite of mine. It's very different from mine, and so we complement each other in a lot of different ways. She has a completely different background than mine, and but she's a hard worker and very smart, and being a hard worker and smart counts in my world.
Oh. Mary Green's showing us where to find the 2006 version of My War for Me.
Oh, okay. There you go, guys. Mary just posted that. Dicondra.org. So you guys can compare it there.
And Michael Cohen's here late. He's
Craig
here.
Whittle's Jedi Mind Probe, yeah.
Shane says, you're right, it's Irish. And so I owe you a drink. So here's to you.
Here's to Shane McLaughlin.
And the Irish.
And the Irish.
Because
Bless their soul.
my name's Irish
Gosh
too.
and Begorra, the saints be praised. They should all be here.
My name is Irish too, but it's because I married into it.
Gage Cochran.
Gage
I married a
Cochran.
Mormon.
Sounds like a movie.
Did she bring her trampoline with her?
Stop that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and Shane's also part Sioux. And
And it was a McLaughlin.
Mick
McLaughlin.
Lynn.
Oh, McLaughlin.
Yes.
That
Sitting Bull.
arrested Sitting Bull in December 15th, 1890, and whose pipe Fenn apparently now owns. Peace pipe. Okay, Gypsy Kiss, treasures could be clues. You know what, Jeff? We've struggled with that. We still don't know what the key word is. I liked treasures because it had this interesting combination of letters in it, where 4 of the letters are repeated in the same word. So it did have some things. Okay, that's Adrian is gone. All right, that's it. We're going to get out of chat and go back to...
Catched up with you people finally.
Yeah, we caught up. That was moving along. That whole remove the 60-second thing moves it along really good, huh?
All right. So thank you for all of your great questions and comments today in the chat. We appreciate your presence here today. And in just a moment, we're going to get to the giveaway.
Oh, giveaway. Yeah.
Giveaway.
Okay, so today's
don't leave.
giveaway
Get
is
your pencils and papers out.
and Lucy's cookbook. It's entitled Comidas de New Mexico. I used to argue whether that should be Comidas de Nuevo Mexico, but hey, she knew what she was doing. So this has some of the best Delgado homemade New Mexican recipes. They are
Or you
not.
could just come to New Mexico and eat the food.
They're not
Which I
Mexican
suggest.
recipes. They're New Mexican, which is a completely different cuisine. It's
Lots
got
more
all
red
kinds of
chili.
things. If you don't make the tamales from this recipe book, you're nuts. They're the best tamales in the world. All my daughters can make tamales from this book. I made them make tamales. Okay, so are you
Okay.
ready?
So are we ready
So-
for the question?
Okay, you ready? 1, 3, 2, 1, and?
There's no question there.
Oh, no, that's just the preliminary thing.
Oh. It's just a transition.
Yeah, transition.
I'm like, there's the what?
Okay, so I'm applying the Jimmy Fast rules. Jimmy Fast, I'm just teasing. You answer in the comments box below. Do not email me. Do not try and comment in the chat in the comments box below once this goes active. Only your first response counts. You can answer 20 times if you want, trying to get to it, but only your first one counts. New winners only. That means if you've already won something, Jimmy Fast, you can't win again, especially since you already won a cookbook and that was your choice. You had Oh, he didn't win.
Jimmy Fast, yeah. He won a coin. No, you
No,
were going to
we
give
gave
him
him a coin, and he
That's
took a
right.
cookbook instead.
Never mind.
Never mind. But has he ever won?
I don't know.
I don't think he has. Jimmy Fast, you might qualify for this. Okay, so answer the comments box below. Only your first response counts. New winners only, and technically, Jimmy Fast, you're a new winner. 6-hour time limit from the end of the show, and you must be one of our subscribers to win. Okay? So, are you ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, and... Okay, there it is.
That went by fast.
Yeah, that was a
Hope you hit pause.
a geographic question today.
Yeah.
So I've got to make these a little bit harder. These guys are winning them like they're going out of style.
Yeah, like super easy.
Yeah.
But they're all puzzlers.
Okay, so tomorrow is Friday. We have an It's All About You with I'm not going to say special guest, another searcher, but an interesting one because we're going to do all About You interview live. The guest searcher is coming by my apartment
Shortly.
at about 3 o'clock, and we're going to do the interview here because they happen to be visiting the area. So that'll be a lot of fun, and we'll post that at 1 o'clock. That's a video, not a live stream, and we'll post that at 1 o'clock Friday afternoon.
Uh-huh.
Do we have any plans for the weekend? No.
Tomorrow afternoon, we're meeting Michael for lunch.
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow at lunchtime, we're meeting Michael Hoole, the gentleman who was a guest on our panel last night from, where was he? Prescott?
He was in Prescott.
And his wife is with him, so we'll get to meet his wife as well. They're passing through Albuquerque on their way north for his search area, so we're going to have lunch with them. And that's true. If you guys, ever find yourself in Albuquerque, make sure you let us know. Send me an email to gypsieskiss.com, and we can have coffee or
gypsieskiss@gmail.com.
Is that what did I say?
.com. That's the blog.
Oh, sorry. gypsieskiss@gmail.com. If you're going to be in the area, and let's get together for a cup of coffee or a soda, or we promise we're not going to drink anymore after Cynthia's thing. So.
Oh. But we did talk about having a party with Cynthia and Jason Dent this weekend.
Jason
right?
Dent this weekend, yeah. So, okay.
And tonight at 7 o'clock p.m., Toby and I will be live with The Softer Side After Dark. And we're going to be talking about how to be a hero in her eyes. And I think it's a really fun topic. And yes, once again, we'll probably stick some sexy talk there in the middle. So make sure you show up for that. And I hope that you can be there. And what you can do is subscribe right now at www.thesofterside.me and click on the bell so you receive a notification when we go live this evening.
And don't forget, like, share,
subscribe,
and subscribe so that you can win some of these prizes. We've got another coin. I think we're down to the last 2 coins. So next couple of weeks we'll get rid of those. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. And for Gypsy's Kiss, the book club, I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Thanks for giving us a really good week this week. We really enjoyed everything that we did. And we look forward to an even better week next week. Thanks again.